Hi there, welcome to Living Life Recovery. My name is Archie. As we begin step 3, I want to share with you tonight the week 3 of the Who is God series, which is headed Hope Through Submission. And I want to begin tonight because as we begin step 3, which is about turning our wills and our lives over to the care of God, I think it's appropriate to fill you in a bit about my own story and about, in particular, my spiritual awakening. My story began in 1987 when I entered a rehab in West Australia called Serenity Lodge and started going to Alcoholics Anonymous and doing the things that I believed that Alcoholics Anonymous told me I should do. I learned the 12 steps, but I never applied them. But I was good enough at bluffing things with people that they thought that I'd got it. Because from a book point of view, I understood the 12 steps. I understood what was required. But as I said, from a practical point of view, I never did any of them. The result was that I ended up, after about 18 months, relapsing. And through that relapse, I ended up in South Australia. And I had nowhere to go, nowhere to live, and nobody that I knew who could support me. So I rang up Alcoholics Anonymous and asked them where I could get a bed for the night. And they told me, go to the Salvation Army. I went to the Salvation Army men's hostel in Whitmore Square in Adelaide and discovered that there were no beds available. So I then went across to St. Luke's and got a bed for the night. And in those days, the hostels were emptied out at 10 o'clock in the morning. And in the afternoon, everybody had to reapply to get in. So I thought, I'll try the Salvos tonight. And as it worked out, there was a bed available. So I got a bed in the William Booth Memorial Hostel. But it wasn't the end of my relapse. I was still drinking. I was still doing the wrong things. And I was spending numerous nights in the Salvation Army's detox unit in Adelaide. Through that time in and out of detox, I heard about the Salvation Army's bridge program, which was on a farm up in Mount Barker in South Australia. And I thought, there's a good place to go. Not necessarily to get my life together, but to get my head together and to start making some plans about where I was going to be and what I was going to do. My plan was eventually to end up in Queensland, where I knew somebody who used to deal drugs. And I figured I'd just go up there and join them, because that's what I did all of my addictive life, was geographicals. So I managed to get onto the bridge program, much to the objection of the counsellor at the time, who told me there and then, Archie, your attitude is all wrong for the bridge program. Fortunately for me, I knew the guy who'd been put in charge. I knew him from West Australia. And he made sure that I got on the bridge program. And within 2 weeks, I'll tell you about the first day. This is when my spiritual awakening happened, I believe. The first group, I got to the program just after lunch, and they had a 12-step group on. Now, as I said, having been in AA, I learned the 12 steps, and I thought I knew them pretty well. So they said to me, you may as well go straight up to group. So I went up to this group, and the step that they were studying at the time was step 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for the knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry it out. And that was like an aha moment to me. Because I realized that as I'd gone into AA and went through the 12 steps, I'd never included God in any part of my recovery. So I made a conscious decision in that first group that whilst I was on the bridge program, I was going to take some time to get to know God and his will for me and how I could apply it to my life. That night was the first time in my life I knelt at my bed and prayed. Twice in my recovery, I have heard the audible voice of Jesus Christ, and this was one of them. Sorry. And he said to me, Archie, you don't need to live like this anymore. Follow me and I will lead you. And so I then went on the bridge program, and my life changed dramatically. I became a Christian when I was on the bridge program, and I started attending church meetings, which I enjoyed because I wanted what the people had. That was the only reason I enjoyed church. The people I met were so happy, and all I ever wanted to do was to be happy. So I started going to church services. I started going to AA meetings, and my life began to change. While I was on the bridge program, the woman that I was going to marry, because God told me. He told me she was the one. The first day I left the bridge program, I went to her church and introduced myself, and we've been together ever since. In about 2005, whilst I was working for the Salvation Army Recycle Industries here in Victoria, the church I was in at the Salvation Army were doing the 40 Days of Purpose. And in that 40 Days of Purpose, because I was the discipleship leader at the Salvation Army, I was asked, would I take on the responsibility of organising all the home groups? And there was a guy there who had a stutter, who wanted to start his own home group, and asked me to come to his stutter group to encourage people to join him, which I did happily, because I'd taken on the responsibility of starting or being responsible for the home groups. In that meeting, God spoke to me again. Because at that time, as I said, I was a territorial transport manager for the Salvation Army's recycling industry. And my life, from a work point of view, was pretty busy. So I stopped doing recovery stuff. Prior to that, I had led and started many groups in AA, in Alcoholics Victorious, and in a number of other fellowships. But I had walked away from it all. And in that meeting, I heard God say to me, Archie, why are you not doing something with people with addictions? Now, I thought to myself there and then, hang on, God, I'm now a Christian. If I start something for alcoholics, it needs to be something biblically based. And I have no Bible curriculum that I can use to start a group. Because of my involvement with the 40 Days of Purpose, I had access to the resources of Saddleback Church. And I found a program called Celebrate Recovery. And I sent away to the States and asked them to send me a leaders pack. And again, it was like the penny dropped. God showed me through Celebrate Recovery and AA how to adapt the 12 steps to the Bible, how they all glued together. And so I set about looking about what I could do with recovery. I had found this curriculum, and God gave me the name Living Life Recovery. He gave me the 12 steps, which you can find on the website if you go into the 12 steps tab. And he gave me the slogan for Living Life Recovery. And I believed then that God gave it to me in order to use it to help other people, to discover that if God could do it for me, he could do it for them. And so I started a Living Life Recovery group using Celebrate Recovery material at my church in Adelaide. I've had a number of groups through the years. I've also been involved here in Victoria in Celebrate Recovery. Over the last year or two, God's prompted me to put together some recovery material. And I might say that today, I do not believe that Living Life Recovery is a tool for me to help other people in their recovery. I believe it's a tool for me to help me in my recovery. I believe that it's a tool that God has given me to share my experience, strength, and hope with other people. And as part of that, I have actually written 7 recovery manuals. And tonight, as I said, we're sharing from the number 2 manual, which is headed, Who is God? And the lesson tonight is hope through submission. Because I believe for all of us, no matter where you are in your recovery walk, that living life in recovery according to God's will makes life valuable. Because prior to taking step 3 and making a conscious commitment to do what God wanted me to do, when He wanted me to do it, how He wanted me to do it, I didn't have much value in my own recovery. I didn't think it was worth anything. There were times where I felt it would have been better to go back to using drugs and alcohol than to keep on the road I was in. But when God got involved, everything changed. Because I believe for all of us in step 3, that God is asking us to submit to Him. He's asking us to lose our self-centeredness and to understand that we're valuable to Him. He created us in His image. And I need to say to you right now, tonight, God doesn't make junk. God doesn't put any of us in positions that we don't need to be in for our own spiritual growth. I've gone through some hard times, both in my addiction and compulsion and in my Christian walk. And as it says in Genesis 1:27, God created us in His image. He created us because in His image because He loves us. Because He wants the best for us. He wants us to become the people that He created us to be. And He wants us to show love to other people. It says in Romans 5:8 that while we were weak, right at the right time in our lives, Jesus Christ came to die for us. He came to die for sinners. And it tells us in the Bible that it was because God loves us, He sent Jesus. He spent 3 years on this earth teaching us how to live. He went to heaven to prepare a way for each of us when we get there. He has a purpose for all of our lives. And He has that because He values us. It tells us in Hebrews 4:15, Jesus understands our weaknesses. Jesus went through temptation. And He did it so that each of us would have an opportunity to be saved. Each of us would have an opportunity for recovery, a chance to become better than we are today, no matter where you are in your walk. Spiritual growth is a permanent status until you get to heaven. What happens there, I don't know because I haven't been there. But God has got things that He wants us all to achieve. He wants us all to seek Him. He wants us all to invite Him in, because God never pushes His way in anywhere. But He likes to be invited. And Jesus likes to be invited to be our one true higher power. 1 John 3:2 tells us all that we are children of God. Only He knows what He has in store for us each. Only He knows what we can achieve. Within us all is spiritual opportunity to become better people than we are today. But the only way that any of us is going to complete it is through taking step 3 until turning our wills and our lives over to Him and sticking with what He tells us to do. Thank you for listening. I look forward to talking to you next week on Living Life Recovery. And I do apologize for dropping the microphone. I'll try not to do it next week. Bye.